Oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm recording this. I hope everyone's fine with that. Judy, what's wrong with your picture? Can you hear me, Judy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see you.
We hear you and see
You have
you.
a
Can you-
camera? Let's see. Ask to start video. Like, I'm gonna ask you a question here. Have you seen answer the question?
Okay, wait. I pushed the video thing. I didn't have any problem before.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You're good. Don't touch
Okay.
anything.
Okay, all right.
Hello. Okay. Sharon, admit.
Just want to make just a little note here, guys. Mom's friend Carol Greenberg is on here from Portugal. Don't know what crazy
I'm
time it is
here,
there.
I'm
so
here.
we
Can you hear
appreciate.
me?
We
Can you
appreciate.
hear
that.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Want everybody to go on mute now, but I wanted to just say we see you and thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you
I can-
want us to go on mute?
Because I don't want to hear people talking when someone else is talking. So we're gonna
How do
have
we
to
go on
have,
mute?
we have
Oh,
a
here.
Yeah.
day.
So,
And
okay.
the other reason you go on mute is if you accidentally, there's any noise on your side, it'll cut off what you're trying to hear. So it won't sound good.
So just click on mute, huh?
You know what? I can mute everybody, so you don't have to do
Okay.
anything.
Oh,
Yeah, he'll do it. And when there are a few people that have been
Oops. Julia, unmute yourself. But okay.
Hi, there are a few people that have been asked to speak and we'll announce them. At the end, the floor will open for anybody who wants to say anything. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself now.
Okay.
Mute me. I have no.
Okay, people are still showing up. Here comes Rachel. Here comes someone on an iPhone. I hope that's Vicky. Here is Mindy. Hey, Rux.
Glenn, it's Jeff Seda.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Good, man. You?
Pretty good. Julie was worried like 20 minutes ago that no one was going to show up, and I told her, don't worry.
Oh, I don't think that was going to be an issue with Phyllis.
Exactly. Oh, I think Gal. Oh,
Gary's going to be on.
yeah. This is great. Hey, Ruth. Okay, we should probably give people a couple more minutes if that's okay, because people are still coming on. And I'm sorry I couldn't give everybody generic instructions on how to use Zoom because it's different for different browsers, different devices, different computers. If you've been on Zoom before, they're all different instructions. Yeah, I see Gloria Gallo is on. Gloria, congratulations. Yes.
Jack, in trouble getting on.
Well, that's kind of not good.
And so he's getting to his working.
Okay. Okay, that's all right. People are still coming on. Yeah, so everybody, Jed is trying to get his system to work. He's trying, so he'll be a couple minutes, and since he speaks almost first, we should wait for him. Yeah,
Right now,
yeah,
not, they're not doing this.
yeah.
Maybe they can-
Okay, sure, okay,
You did now.
right. Okay, everybody, since we're waiting for Jed, and it might be nice to talk amongst ourselves, you could unmute yourself and chatter, and then we'll go, we'll ask you to mute later, or I'll just mute everybody later. So Sharon, Bob, say hi. Look at me, too close to my computer. There we go.
Glenn, are we supposed to be able to see everybody's thumbnail?
Up to a certain point, the screen gets filled at like, what, 4x5 at 20. So then there's a little button to the right that says 1 of 2, or like a blue arrow. And if you click that, you should get to a second screen of people.
It's 5x5.
Yeah, I can count. All right, 5 by 5, 25. Thank you.
Hi, Glenn. I'm Julie and I'm on. It's Jed.
Well,
Oh,
it
good. All right,
depends.
Jed's on.
Oh, kitty cat. It depends on your device. Like, oh God, I look terrible. I'm on an iPad.
Yeah,
So God, okay, I'm shutting off this video.
where's Lou? Yeah,
Right here. Right here. I am here. I am. It's like Horton
I'm
hears a
back.
who. I am here. I am here.
I'm just trying to figure out
Where's
which
Jed?
which
I don't
screen you're
see
on. There's
Jed.
Lou. All right.
Where's Jed?
Oh, he's just
Oh,
looking
Vicky.
at-
Vicky's got it figured out. This is good.
I can't.
The way it's set up.
Vicky? Yeah.
No,
My second page that you.
Yeah, I just did that. Okay. Okay, once again, if you want to see other screens of people, there's an arrow in the middle of the screen, like third row, all the way to the right. It's blue. And if you go over it, you can click it and you get to the other screen.
No.
And if you want to go back to the first screen, you go to the left arrow on the left side.
I don't
click
have
that.
blue arrow, Glenn. I don't have a blue arrow on my screen.
What
Okay.
device are you on? What kind of computer or phone or what are you on?
I'm on an iPad.
Okay, anybody with an iPad know where the arrow is?
Yes, I'm on an iPad.
Okay.
Do you have a
Lou?
blue screen, a blue arrow?
No, it's not. It's not.
If you're on an iPad or a mobile device, you just swipe the screen to the
Oh, there
left.
we go. Swipe with your finger.
There's
Yeah,
no
I'm
arrow.
s-
You just.
I'm
swipe it like you're reading.
swiping and I'm swiping and nothing's happening. Okay.
But you just got a bunch of dates, so congratulations.
Hi, Ruth.
Lou.
Hi, darling. How you doing?
I see you. I see
Good.
you.
That's a start for all of us.
Yes.
Barbara. Hi,
Auntie
Barbara.
Nona, Auntie Nona, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Hi, Adam. Hi,
Okay.
Morty.
Sarah Ravis. I
Hi,
don't
Marty.
believe you. Sarah,
see
it's been
Joe.
50 years.
Hi,
Yeah,
Hi,
Last time
I see. I admitted Ted and Noah. Let me see if I see
Hi,
them.
Jed.
Bruce is
Hey,
not.
guys.
I
Your
don't
mic
think
is
so.
open so you can talk.
Oh, I see everybody now.
All right, Glenn,
Just a moment ago.
Glenn. it's
Yes.
Vicky. It's
Hey, Vicky, I knew
Vicky.
you made it. Yeah, I see you.
I
All
made
right,
it,
you
I
figured
made
it out.
except it still says in the middle of my phone, installation failed. But I'm
Oh,
not gonna
wow.
touch it. Let it
There
just.
you
Don't
are.
touch it. It's working.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Arnie.
Hi, Arnie.
Arnie, you want to pull up here, sweetie? You can see it.
Well, here's
But
it.
it
Here's
says
it.
installation failed, but that's the
Are
way
we
it is.
talking about Arnold?
Oh, I
Frank?
see Teddy and Noah. Hey, you guys. Hey, Noah.
Oh, my God.
Did we lose audio? Anybody else lose audio? Can anybody hear us?
I
Yes,
can hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can
I
hear
can hear
you.
you.
Who's on
Okay.
first?
All right, Julie, you want to start? Julie?
Yes. Did you see what it says there? Installation failed.
Julie.
Yeah, you're off mute.
Okay.
Okay, let's now. All
I have
right,
my own.
I'm gonna mute everybody and then unmute Julie and then she's gonna start, okay?
Okay.
Good.
All right, Julie.
Okay, I know we're missing some people, but I think we should get going. So I want to, oh, sorry, Tasha's helping me. I want to welcome you all today. Thank you for coming. I know Zoom is not familiar to all of you. Please put yourself on mute. So there's hitting the mute button on the, okay, we went over that enough. When it's your turn to talk, you can click it again to unmute. Something's happening. If you are here, Mom loved you. She talked about you. You added value to her life. And we thank you for that from the bottom of our hearts. We all miss her in the ways we remember her best. Funny, smart, creative, and loving. If you did not see her New York Times Mother's Day obituary and want to, you can just text me or email us and we'll send it to you. Some people are planning to speak. The floor will be opened at the end for any of you who want to add anything. Between speakers will be a slideshow that my husband Glenn made. Thank you, honey. Now for your first speaker, drum roll, my brother Jed, the most amazing son a mom could have.
Thanks, Julie. Does everybody hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I got a new computer and forgot to download Zoom. Just assumed everything was how it should be. Thank you, Julie and Glenn. I hope you know that at a certain point, I just hit the wall with respect to the time and emotional energy I can spend on mom's affairs, and I don't know how this would have happened except for you guys. So thank you, and everybody, thank you for taking the time on this holiday weekend to share your memories about mom. Mom played many roles to many people. Beloved daughter, sister, aunt, and granny, and close friend and confidant. And I'm so glad that so many of her friends can be here now. I just heard the name Sarah, which I haven't heard in so long, and I'm so glad that you can make it. I hope Gloria's here. I know Ruth is here, Carol. But perhaps the most important role was mother to Julie and me. To friends growing up, she was the cool mom. I spoke to my childhood friend, many of whom I still have, John Schoenberg, Shoney, and he said that mom was the cool mom. Your mom was the cool mom because not because she would let you drink beer in the basement, which she wouldn't, although we did, but because she listened and she treated you like an individual and not just a kid. Going through the photos, and she's got about 4 photo albums, I got a glimpse of mom, not as my mother, but as a whole person. Of course, the person in the photos is associated with stories that she shared with me throughout my life. However, going through the photo albums now takes on a different meaning. Mom had a full life. She had great friendships, great loves, and powerful family bonds. She made the most of her time in this realm, and she appreciated and never took for granted what she had. Mom traveled and had adventures, and one of the things going through the photo albums I saw is even as a young single woman, she had these adventures. And when when mom came to live in Los Angeles to be closer to me and Julie, she would point out the streets she remembers driving on and where she lived in her early 20s when she moved across the country on her own for a year or so and gallivanted with the young and beautiful, who are also just starting their lives as young adults. Since I was something of mom's chauffeur these last 10 years and driving the streets of Los Angeles, I've heard these same street names repeatedly and admittedly rolled my eyes once I started to correctly predict when mom would tell me again that she used to drive on La Cienega or La Brea to get to her work. But going through the photo albums to pick out certain ones to provide to Glenn in order for him to put together the beautiful montage that you'll see, I realized somewhat to my shame for rolling my eyes that mom was relaying to me that there was a time when she was young and fearless and willing to leave the safety of her family and friends in the Bronx and have an adventure. And because she was smart and funny and beautiful, the photos reveal quite a party. Guys, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I know you're not on here to see a grown man.
Hey, Jed, it's okay. It's
All right,
okay.
let me,
You're a grown man, but you're a son, so.
let me give it another shot. Mom's second and final move to Los Angeles was also on an adventure, although not so much of a party. If I'm to be honest, I knew it would not be the ideal place for her. First and foremost, she was a New Yorker. And even when she lived across the Hudson in Tenafly, New Jersey, and New York City was only 30 minutes away, she always wanted to be in Manhattan. Secondly, she did not drive in Los Angeles, and a car is a must. But Maya and Tasha were growing up and the West Coast, and Mom wanted to be closer to her grandchildren. I also knew that sooner or later, Mom would need my support. And so Los Angeles it was. While there were definitely some difficult times, Mom got to have loving and fun times with her grandchildren, Maya and Tasha, and those people who are their parents. I think Julie and I were probably secondary by the time that Maya and Tasha came along. However, honestly, it is difficult to put a positive spin on these last 3 years, except to say I was able as best I could to do for Mom a measure of what she had done for me. Which is to take care of her when she was at her most vulnerable. And while it could be very frustrating at times to care for someone as independently minded as Phyllis Hunt, I'm honored. I'm honored that I was able to do this for her and for me. Oh, she was often very funny. All right, that's what I got. That's about all I can do right now. Thanks.
Okay, next, we'd like Ruth Sachs to speak. Mom, close dear friend for many years.
Well,
Ruth, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ruth.
Okay. Well, that's a hard act to follow. Phyllis Hunt, Minav Hunt. Who else has so many names? It's hard to believe I lost my only sister that I acquired not through blood, but rather friendship. It isn't easy to remain close for 61 years, but we pulled it off. We supported, we pushed, we argued, we struggled, we observed, we truly loved, and we succeeded because we laughed a lot. Sometimes aided by a glass of wine or two, but mostly because we got each other. We raised children, shared secrets, kept secrets, and equally important, we could be sad with each other. Phyllis was a multi-talented woman and pursued her career passionately, which resulted in praise and accolades. Her humor and her intelligence and her curiosity infused all the projects she undertook. But I am here to share the more personal and leave the professional to others. The seasons of Phil. Spring comes to life in the playground, on benches, or at either end of the seesaw, hanging on to children, alternately praising or complaining about them. We had conveniently had 2 girls followed by 2 boys. Summer of the early years at Fire Island that we shared before she left Dunewood. Our children played endlessly, and so did we. gin rummy being a favorite. Our youthful energy was displayed as we walked to and from Ocean Beach, the playground, a stop at Klein's general store, and ice cream. I'm not going to talk about some of the things we all did at night, better left unsaid. Those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never end and fall. Life proceeded as we became older. Phyllis moved out of the city, out of her marriage, back into the city she loved, and pursued a successful career until she retired. I too, at a slower pace, also worked in television, changed careers, and became a therapist. Winter advances on all of us in different ways. I left New York City and moved to California near my son. Phyllis left New York City, moved to California near her son. And I would drive up and we would have such good times. And for a few years, Phyllis enjoyed living in Los Angeles. She found the bus, went to the library she discovered. She loved to read, besides books, the ubiquitous New Yorker magazine and the Weekend Times. We went to movies, restaurants, and on our own happy hour that made us very happy indeed. She moved again, this time close to her son, as her physical limitations increased. And so I watched my dear sister friend enter a final decline. As we strained to connect, as always, a laugh, a discussion of politics or movies, and always the children, until there was no more. Her sweet special light grew dim and flickered and went out, and I miss her every single day as something happens, and I automatically replay it for her. Wherever she is helpful, smiling as she watches. The rest of us continue to stumble through our lives. I love you, Philzy.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I know that was really hard. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna ask the next speaker, which is Mom's cousin Jackie, to please unmute and share with us.
Okay.
Hi. This is more than I expected. Oh, okay. So Julie asked me to speak about the family. So that's what I'm going to do for the most part. Phyllis and I were first cousins. Her mother, Grace, and my dad, Irving, were siblings. Because there were so many children born to my grandmother, my first cousins were often 20 or more years older than I was. So Phyllis and I were separated by a generation in years, which didn't really work for a close relationship when I was 3 and she was starting college. But years later, when we were both single women living in New York, we became close. And she was actually the older sister, more like an older sister to me. Our kids were the same age, and we found that we had a lot in common. For instance, she loved to tell endless stories about her life, and I loved to hear them. It was perfect. She, along with cousin Jack, were the family historians. It is a large family with a rich history, and they were the keepers of the family stories. They knew the backstories to complicated family relationships, situations, etc. It just terrifies me to think that this job is now mine. I wish I had taken notes. So while we had a lot in common, this was not really true of everything. I was the hippie flower child and she was the New York City sophisticate. She referred to rock and roll as my music, and she tried her best to get me to love hers. She once took me to a Chick Corea concert, hoping to win me over to her music. I think it was one of the longest nights of my life. I know she meant well, but I think she knew by my numerous trips to the ladies' room that the transformation had not taken hold. We did better with classical music in the theater, however. Our family was large and over the years scattered. Phyllis's New York City apartment was ground zero for any family passing through the area. She was the most wonderful hostess, and my memories of family gatherings were often at her apartment in the city. It was often the opportunity to see family that I hadn't seen for years, and she was for many years the glue that held the family together. Those were very good times, and I really do miss them. My cousin Phyllis led a remarkable, exciting, interesting, satisfying life. She knew famous and interesting people, traveled to exotic places, had an innovative, creative, rewarding, and successful career, loved and was loved by wonderful men. She experienced life in New York City to the limit and was on the cutting edge of everything new and exciting in the arts, music, and the theater. But in her life, the thing that she was most proud of and cherished above all else were her children and her granddaughters. After my first grandchild was born, she shared with me that she was sure that having grandchildren just were not in the cards for her. She was very sure that this was true. When it happened that she did become a grandmother, not to one, but to two granddaughters, she was overwhelmed. The joy that Natasha and Maya have brought to her life is impossible to describe. Unexpected, total bliss. I was so happy for her. I guess you really never know what the universe has in store for you. I thought I might talk about my cousin's generosity, her humanity, her love for people, her strength, her passion, her intellect, and I could really for hours. But Julie asked me to speak about family, so I will just end by saying that my cousin Phyllis was one of the most loving and kind people I have ever known, and I will miss her. Whenever she had gatherings at her house, she always asked me what I could, I always asked her what I could bring. And she always said, nothing, just bring flowers. So Philly, here are your flowers, and I love you.
Thank you so much, Cousin Jackie. I've had a request. We were going to go to the slideshow next, but I think I've had a request from Mom's old friend Bunny, who she was with in those years in Los Angeles that Jed mentioned. So Bunny, I'm going to give you the floor.
Bunny, you have to unmute.
Okay, now can you hear
There we
me?
go.
Okay.
Yeah, start, please.
I started to say that Phyllis made such a beautiful impression on my life that I can hardly remember when I didn't know her. And I think that was the core of our friendship. I met Phyllis in 1953 when we both worked at a place called Buckeye Construction, which was, it was called Buckeye because the people who owned the company were from Ohio. We hit it off immediately. And we used to have lunch together and schmooze, and it was just delightful to get to know her at that time. Oh, there I am in big. It was really sad when she went back to New York. I think she was just here to get away from a boyfriend or have a new adventure. Very typical Phyllis. And when she left, there was such a pall on the office that I quit. I just couldn't be there without her. She was a New Yorker through and through, and it was painful for her when she had to leave. But leave she did to be with her children and her grandchildren, whom she adored. She spoke to me often about Tasha and Maya and the pride she took in both of you. But Jed and Julie were the two great triumphs of her life. It was such a joy to listen to her talk about the two of you and how much she meant to you. So Phil and I spent many happy times together, even after she went back to New York. But she came very often to live in to be in Los Angeles, primarily for work. And when she came, we would just pick up our conversations exactly where we left off. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, but it was like we never finished the conversation. I just wanted to say I scoured the internet looking for a quote, a wise quote that would epitomize my relationship with Phyllis. And of course, I ended up with Shakespeare. And what he said was, grasp your friends into your soul with hoops of steel. And Phil and I did just that. I prefer not thinking of this as a memorial, but as a celebration of her life, because her life was well worth celebrating. She was one of a kind, and I really, really miss her.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. That was really meaningful. I know that you're supposed to be at an event, so I really appreciate your letting me know that you wanted to speak and sharing that with us. Thank you.
Okay.
You're muted now. Oh, sorry. What do we do?
Unmute yourself.
Glenn, unmute her.
Okay.
We couldn't hear you because you were muted then. Sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted to say that this is such a lovely celebration for Phyllis. She would have loved being here and hearing all the accolades, and maybe in some crazy way she is, and listening. Bye, my dear.
Okay. Right now, I think we're going to go to, can everybody hear me? Okay. We're going to go to the amazing slideshow. We didn't have pictures from everybody. It would have been a lot, but we have some pictures that are over her life, and we hope you enjoy this slideshow. I'm very grateful to my honey for doing it.
spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps and find I'm a number one, top of the list, king of the hill, a number one. These little town blues are melting away. I'm gonna make a brand new start of it in old New York. And if I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York, New York.
Hi, that was great, huh? I know we're missing whole sections of her life because nobody had cell phones and people, we didn't have pictures from everybody. We wanted to have pictures of her on the town in New York City, but we just didn't have them. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anybody who wants a copy, we'll send to you. The whole thing's being recorded today, so you can, anybody who requests it can have it. Jed, if you want to read what Gilly sent. Okay, so Jed's going to read a statement from his best friend from growing up, who considered mom a second mom, who's driving somewhere and doesn't have good enough reception. So Jed's going to read it. And after that, we're going to hear from Steve Seda, who is one of the many older brothers of Jed's best friend Gilly, who also had a strong relationship with mom. Okay, go Jed.
Thanks. That's really Julie's way of saying, Jen, are you going to cry when you read this? But I don't think so, because that picture montage just put me in a good place. So I'm Gil, and I'm reading this. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Gilbert Seda. Jed and Julie and I are childhood friends and grew up across the street from each other. We have been the best of friends for over 50 years and our family as much as one can be. One of my earliest memories as a little person is when their family moved in up the street. I was 4 going on 5 and was excited as hell to get more kids to play with. I am the youngest of 6 kids, and all my siblings are 6+ years older than me. I have since concluded that I wasn't exactly planned, but I know that I planned on getting to know Jed and Julie. Being the youngest of 6 meant that I never sat next to a car window. I got shoved into the corner of the breakfast nook, and food was a grab it while you can event at dinner. We were modest, upwardly mobile, moving middle class, but food was bought in bulk. Our cereal was no frills and bland. However, if I wanted to get some sugary cereal, I headed to Phyllis's house for a sweet snack. Phyllis always brought the good stuff. Childhood with the Minoff Hunt family was pretty typical. Sleepovers, playing on the weekends, riding our bikes, a lot of wiffle ball, getting into more trouble than we should have, and time just hanging out at their house. Phyllis immediately made me feel like I was one of her.
Jed, you're on mute.
I'm not sure why. Are we running out of batteries here? Okay, am I good now?
You're good
Jed,
now.
Jed, sorry, I had muted you. I was trying to
Oh,
mute
no
some
worries.
other noise. So back up to a few seconds, that's all.
Okay, Phyllis immediately made me feel like I was one of her own, and the feeling was quite mutual. Phyllis was the first person outside of my family that truly respected me as an individual, treated me like a youngster and mentored when necessary, but also made the effort to treat me as mature as possible. When I became an adult, she insisted that I call her Phyllis. I once said, "Hi, Mrs. Minoff," and she immediately said in that sassy tone that I loved, "Gilbert, I'm not Mrs. Minoff anymore, and you can call me Ms. Hunt, but I would rather you just call me Phyllis." From that day on, Phyllis it was. Jed and I ended up living together in San Francisco, and Phyllis would come out from New York every so often to visit. In late December 1995, she was in the city, but Jed was out of town. Phyllis still wanted to get together and visit. I was more than happy to oblige and invited her to dinner at the house we were renting. I had just started dating this girl, like 2 or 3 dates new, and we all sat down and I had a good nosh. Phyllis was her usual engaging and hilarious self and got along famously with my date. Towards the end of the dinner, she looks at us with this glint in her eye and says, "So, if you two are going to have kids, how are you going to get together?" I was trading at the time and was going to work at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, so I guess she thought it was an issue. After trying not to spit my food out at the question, my date and I looked at each other, laughed, and said, "Oh, I guess we'll figure it out." Phyllis was absolutely the first person to see and bold enough to ask a question that I guess was obvious to her at the time. That date became my wife, and we've been married for 26 years now. We have 3 kids, so yes, Phyllis, we got together and figured it out. I feel truly blessed when she decided to move to LA and she was able to meet my children and they her. All 3 of them adored her. I didn't see as much as Phyllis as I should have the last few years. That was my fault, and I absolutely regret it. When she was brought back to her apartment for hospice care, I was fortunate to get a last sassy glimpse of the woman who was my second mom. She told funny stories, laughed as much as she could, and still cared how my family and I were doing. I will truly miss Phyllis. She was lovely to the end. Gil.
Okay, so Steve Seda, this is your time. This is one of Gilly's older brothers. Gil, whatever.
Wow, I don't know how to follow that. I know there are a lot of people who want to speak, so I will keep this kind of brief, but Phyllis she had a special place in my heart because she taught me many things which I still use today. She trusted me enough to help work on a script with her. She was working on some project for Stacy Keach, I believe it was. I was just out of college. I was starting a job at Prentice Hall Publishers up in Englewood Cliffs, and just kind of learning how to be an editor and stuff. And she asked me to help her with this script and put it together and format and all that good stuff. And she taught me how to be consistent, how to proofread your own work, how to just double check everything and, cross those T's and dot those I's. And she was patient and caring. And, she was my friend Jed's mom, but she was, to me, she was my friend Phyllis who lived up the street. And I didn't get to see her in the last several years. I moved to Chicago, and she had left Tenafly and went back to New York, and then she was out on the West Coast. So I was just devastated when I heard that she wasn't doing well, and just sorry I didn't get to see her at the end. But she was a warm, loving, gentle, caring, sweet, wonderful woman. And she has 2 amazing kids, and 2 grandkids I've yet to meet. So I need to get down to out to the West Coast and meet the kids as well. But Phyllis has just a warm place in my heart, and I'm a better person personally and professionally for having had her in my life. So thank you, Phyllis, and we miss you and we love you.
Hi, next we're gonna have Mom's friend Gloria Gallo, and after that will be Adam Sachs, Ruth's son. So Gloria, it's yours.
You gotta unmute. Gloria, you gotta unmute. There you
Okay.
go.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. Anyway, when Phyllis moved to LA, we had a weekly phone date on Sunday evenings, right about this time. And little could I imagine that those Sunday night phone conversations would end and that I would be part of saying goodbye to her with all of you, but also celebrating her life with all of you. And for me, that's an honor. Phyllis and I shared a 41-year friendship. And no, we were not classmates at Ding Dong School. We met when she joined Primetime Entertainment in New York, where I was working. And I actually don't remember the first time we met, our first exchange, but as I got to know her, I was in awe. She had a few more years on me, was smart as a whip, and much more knowledgeable about the entertainment industry. She was personable, sophisticated, funny, everything I wanted to be. Heart of gold and a great generosity of spirit. We became fast friends, although frankly, I don't know what she first saw in me, this Italian Catholic from Jersey. It all came together after our first lunch, and we found we shared similar interests, values, feelings about the importance of family and friendships, not to mention laughter and humor. The rest, as they say, is history. Julie and Jed, and all of you, well, Julie and Jed spoke eloquently about their mother in all of their postings, and all of you shared such wonderful memories. So just to be brief, I'll touch on one aspect of her personality, one that we shared, and that was humor. That humor did not fail her, not even in her last months as she was struggling with so many health challenges. She would come back from a doctor's appointment and tell me how she had them all laughing. And I was amazed at that spirit. And I hope I could be as graceful if given the challenges she was given at that time. But back to her humor. When my mother passed away, she came to our home and spent an afternoon with us. At that point, we were 14 years into our friendship. As always, the conversation was comfortable, easy. We spoke about so many things, our mothers, our family's life, how we were going to solve the problems of the world. But then at one point, she said she had a poem for me. And she proceeded to read it. It's one you may be familiar with. And I'll ask that you indulge me as I read it, because this was from Phyllis. They were not my words. And it's called "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. She then paused for a moment, and then in typical Phyllis fashion, began to sing. And don't cry for me, Argentina. We exchanged glances, and then I absolutely cracked up. She managed to change the mood and make me feel good with her humor, and all was well in a heartbeat. To this day, I cannot listen to that song without thinking of that afternoon and Phyllis's poem and spin on "Do not cry, do not weep at stand at my grave and weep." Anyway, I miss my best friend more than words will ever express. But I have 41 years of memories that will warm my heart when I'm missing her the most. And I carry her in my heart. And I'm grateful that I was part of her life. And for all that she gave me, she really helped me want to be a better person. Someone once told me to stay close to people who feel like sunlight. Phyllis made me feel like sunlight, as I'm sure she made the rest of you feel. If there is another life beyond this, whatever we want to call it, a heaven, a more perfect reality or whatever, I hope it's one where I will find Phyllis waiting for me and that we can share eternity, laughing, smiling, remembering. I miss her. I love her. Julie and Jed, you had the best. And I know you know it. And I know you will carry on her legacy. You'll be your own person, but you will pick up on the traits that were important to her and that you can share with your children now. So it was, I loved hearing all the stories and Glenn, the pictures, the photographs. All we could say is a life well lived. Who could ask for more than that? God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you. I'm gonna open the floor now to Adam Sachs, who is Ruth's son. When Ruth was speaking, she said, first we had little girls and then we had little boys. Adam Sachs is a little boy.
Thanks, everybody. Phyllis has, I'm 55 years old. So Phyllis was in my life for 55 years. From the day, the day we started. I have so many memories of Phyllis. I just don't even know what I was trying to think what's the right stories to tell or things to say. I have early Fire Island memories of Phyllis, who, you know, her and my mom, you saw those glamour shots on the beach. They were having a blast, and it was paradise for young children. It was me and Jed and Julie and Sharon running until the night was long, and then I'd come inside to their house covered in sand, mostly because Julie pushed me over. And Phyllis would always be there to wipe the sand off and clean me up a little bit before she kicked me out and sent me home. Early memories. Then came the years of Jersey, and it was a treat for me to get to go out to Jersey and hang with Julie and Jed and see Gil and you know, Billy and their whole group, and through sled down somebody's giant hill behind their house. And again, Phyllis was always there to take care of us, and she was totally a cool mom. You could tell that, you know, from the neighborhood. She had the basement. She had the most amazing basement. Like, what we could do in that basement was amazing. You just, everything went on in that basement, and apparently you couldn't hear anything. So it was just great fun. Then we grew up, and Jed and I go to Europe, and I have an iconic picture of Jed and I in the driveway of the Jersey home that they had. That's where we left from, because we flew out of Newark. And in this picture, I have a giant stain on the front of my shirt. And apparently Phyllis was perfectly all good with sending us on an airplane to Europe. Like, literally, we were getting in the car, and I'm like, why didn't she tell me to change my shirt? Because that was Phyllis. She just let you, you know, kind of do your thing. So you could count on Phyllis for just a smile and gracious welcome and honesty. Because then I became adult and I didn't see her for a few years, and she shows up and goes, "Oh, Adam, you're fat. What happened?" I would have to go, "Oh, well, thank you. Let me get check on that." So God, just so many memories and so many smiles and so many laughs, and such a just dear companion for my mother and for all of us. So we'll miss her. Thanks. Love you.
Next up, we'd like to hear from Steve and Judy.
Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
I knew Phyllis since 1958. I had graduated law school, I guess, and I came to the city, went to work for a theatrical agency, and Marvin was working for William Morris. In spite of the regulations against that, we both moved in together. It was at 5 West 95th Street, just off of Central Park West. And Phyllis would come to visit us. It was a modest apartment with a big fireplace as you came in the living room. And Phyllis, of course, named it. And Phyllis's name for it was the Big Stain. Somebody else remembers that. Anyway, I loved her dearly. I knew her for a long time before she was married to Marvin. I went through all of that with both of them. And then we moved next door to them on West 81st Street. They called us and said the adjoining apartment was available. Come and get it, which we did. And we had a few years of open doors and visits. And it was really quite lovely until they moved to New Jersey. So that's my early remembrance of Phyllis. And then, of course, there was Fire Island, which was great fun. It was playing in the sand and enjoying it. So I'll miss you, Phyllis.
We love you, Phyllis, and appreciate your beauty, your humor, your intellect, and our memories are just fully intact and glowing.
Thank you.
Hi, we're gonna open the floor to everybody. At some point, Danny Wilson is gonna try to call in. He was her boss at Danny Wilson Productions, which is kind of the peak of her career, and she had a lot of fun. He's gonna call in, but I think Phyllis's niece Rachel would like to say something, and then we're just gonna open it to everybody. And you just let us know. And you can also write in the chat that you want to speak, so we know.
Thanks, Julie and Jed and Glenn. Hi, y'all. I'm Rachel. Julie asked if I had a Phyllis story to share this evening. And the truth of the matter is like all of you, I couldn't pinpoint just one story, but rather just incredibly powerful, dare I say, life-changing moments, big and small, from throughout my life after meeting my Aunt Phil and my cousins Julie and Jed when I was 4 years old. And my father, Stephen, married Renee, Phyllis's niece. Shortly after that, I got to meet great-grandma Grace and my super cool cousins. Talk about sophisticated family members, Jackie. These big cousins taught me really important things about growing up and being a cool kid, including how to skateboard in my Atlanta suburban neighborhood and cul-de-sac. The problem I don't think that y'all taught me how to stop. So even when I face planted going down the big hill on my street and scraped up my entire face, Aunt Phil calmed me down like a salve on my face scabs. And I can see now that that was the moment that I should have known that she was going to become a remarkable and vital calming force in my life. After many years of 2 infrequent visits with cousins and extended family, I found myself in New York City as a young college student interning as a writer at Scholastic and living in the East Village. Aunt Phil welcomed me regularly into her home, showed me how to buy same-day theater tickets, groceries, and cheap flowers on the street corner, and $1.25 bagels and coffee, since I was living off of my intern salary. Like Gilly said, Aunt Phil was the first person to treat me like a knowledgeable, capable grown-up. I don't know that I was grown up, but I was 20 and I felt like one. But she was the first person to take me seriously and talk about real things and to demonstrate confidence in my ability to make a go of it in New York and to love me unconditionally, like a real mother figure that I so desperately needed. After college, I came back to New York to look for a job, and with no income and therefore no place to live, Aunt Phil welcomed me back into her home as a roommate, not only with open arms, but the most sincere enthusiasm that absolutely belied our age difference and my adoption papers. I have incredible memories of how we cooked veggie lasagna and other homemade delicacies in her apartment, and we walked Shannon, the dog, like real roommates. We were silly. One of the photos that Glenn did not share was of Aunt Phil with a bra on her head, which she joked about for years to come. We did the shopping together and yes, bought flowers. Even though I was just 21, I really take pride in the fact that she claimed that I was the best roommate she ever had. She certainly was mine. Most notably, my Aunt Phil empowered me as a young woman growing into my own. And I'd like to think that maybe it was the same way that she had pushed and grown and stretched herself. This was more than significant at a time when I really needed that kind of encouragement that laughter, her role modeling, and her love. Jed and Julie, I always wanted to be the third kid. She boasted and gushed about you regularly until Tasha and Maya came along, and then you two took center stage. Her love for you is so evident, so profound, so unconditional. I always admire and appreciate that. And while I will ever be so grateful to share like a minute little bit of that kind of familial love. Miss you.
So this is, the floor is open now. If anybody wants to talk. I know some of you have shared great stories with me, but I don't know how awake people are. Would somebody like to speak?
I would.
I figured. Go ahead. You're here. What time is it
I'm
there?
here. I'm here barely awake because I'm in Portugal. But I have to tell you that I've known Phyllis through Ruth. I met Phyllis at Fire Island and we just bonded together. We shared a house together in Amagansett. We did things together. And every time when I told her I was coming to Portugal, she said, oh, I wish I could come with you. I said, you'd never be able to do the hills. And we just had the best time talking on the phone. And I loved being with her because of her humor and because she saw good in everybody. She'd never had a bad word to say about anybody. And there's so many stories to tell, but I won't take up the time because I have to go to sleep. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And the Buddhists say that a person doesn't die unless somebody stops speaking their name. And we will never stop speaking her name because she was a remarkable person. Thank you.
Okay, I'm so glad to say, because I know I didn't ask a lot of people to speak because I wasn't sure who would be comfortable, but Ruth's daughter Sharon, my cousin, she'd like to say a few words. Thanks so much, Sharon.
I'll try, honestly, to get through this. Because Julie, I don't love talking. But, so many of us who grew up as children around Phyllis have talked about how she spoke to us like we were full-grown people. And she just shined us with so much love. Somebody else described her as radiant. I think whenever she saw me, the first thing she always said to me is, "You look so beautiful." And I just felt that love from her. Always. I think that's all I can do, guys. But I wanted to say my piece.
Thanks, Cher. I love you. I know that wasn't easy for you.
Love you.
But that's a message to all of you shy people, that this is a safe space. And if you feel comfortable sharing anything, we'd love to hear it.
Oh, and I just want to say one more thing. She'd never stopped talking about Tasha and Maya. That's all I heard was Tasha this and Maya this and Tasha this and Maya that. And I said, Phyllis, stop it already. She said, I can't because they're both so incredible. She said, I can't stop. And that's it. That's all.
Julie, it's Vicky. I just wanted to say a few words.
Let me just introduce you then. This is Vicky Kupitz. This is Bonnie, our stepmother's oldest sister, who welcomed Mom into her family and into her with Arnie's Passover every year. And their whole family really treated my mother with such love. We will always be grateful to you.
Well, I didn't know Phyllis in all those years. It was such a pleasure hearing all of you speaking of her, of this, dynamic, young, sexy woman in all those pictures. I only knew her these last years when she permanently moved to LA. But we did have the pleasure of having her until COVID to every Passover for the year she was here. And the joy that she expressed being with the family, but watching Tasha and Maya, because we did little plays at Passover where they, put a scarf around them and they'd be a character in the plays, and they were adorable. And she was there with the biggest smile, the biggest grin on her face, enjoying all of that. And then when we had, again, the treat of watching Maya in her performances, and we went with Phyllis and Jed, and if Julie and Tasha were in town. And again, she just beamed sitting there in the audience watching her beautiful granddaughter. So those are my memories of having the pleasure of being with her and having the pleasure of watching the joy and the love she has had for Julie and Jed and Madoka and Glenn and Tasha and Maya. Those were my just lovely, lovely, warm memories of her. I think this comments from all of you gave me an insight and a look into Phyllis that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So thank you for that.
I just want to say that I just got a text. There's a magnificent woman who's here named Ermin, who was my mom's aide and helped to take care of her at really the most difficult time probably in her life. And my mom wasn't always easy. She didn't like depending on anybody for anything. But Ermin, who doesn't feel comfortable talking, did send me a text that says she was so honored to have been with her, and she's so honored to be with our family and with everybody today. So thanks, Ermin. We love and appreciate you. I don't think we have any more specific speakers other than Danny Wilson if he calls in. He's supposed to. So if there's anyone else that has anything to say in this time, or if you just want to talk to each other, you can unmute and it's fine. And I know, Marty, you might have a story or two. It's okay that family has already spoken. It's okay that friends have already spoken. Anybody in any category is welcome to speak.
Julie? It's Dick. Oh, there you are. I just wanted to say, I'm Vicky's younger brother, and Vicky just spoke. But I want to let you know that my wife and I were the ones that picked up Phyllis and drove her to Vicky's house for all the holidays. And we spoke to her going and coming, and we were at her disposal if she needed a ride to go somewhere. So we got to know Phyllis on that basis, but we moved about 4.5 years ago down to the desert. So we really didn't see Phyllis for the last 4.5 years, but for the years before that, we really got to love Phyllis, and we knew how she loved her kids and her grandkids, and just wanted to throw it out there that we thought she was a great woman, and we're just sorry we haven't seen her in the last 3 or 4 years. But anyway, we loved her and we miss her, and thank you for letting us be a part of this today.
Thanks so much, Dick. Really appreciate it. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to speak a little bit. I wanted to make sure that there was time and that everybody got to speak. And this is off the cuff. I think those of you who have known my mom a long time know that ours was a tumultuous relationship, and then I was a very, very difficult teenager. And our relationship was kind of a roller coaster due to me. She held fast, steady. She loved me no matter what. She was patient in ways I wish I could be with my own daughter. I try to channel her. She always said, every time I felt bad for not being able to come through in some way, she said, Julie, you're the best daughter in the whole world. And I love you so much. And I'm so glad that our relationship is the way it is now. And I really appreciated that. And I play it over in my head. And when we came home from China with Natasha, I didn't let her come immediately because they had said we should be the only ones to really hold her. And I knew my mom would stay here. And I knew as soon as she got here, they'd be stuck together like glue, which they were. And, you know, we got to go out to dinner and said, Mom, Tasha was a little older now. She was crawling around. When she was a baby, she fell asleep on my mother's chest. Somewhere that picture exists. When she was a little older, she came and babysat, and we were going out. And I said, Mom, don't give Natasha any sugar. Don't give her anything past this time. She will keep you up. She will not go to sleep. So of course, when we went out, when we came home, they were both awake. My mother looked exhausted. Tasha was jumping on the bed. And my mother said, I only gave her a little bit of chocolate pudding and a little bit of juice. They said, good luck, Mom, and good night. We left Tasha with her. She had no problem. They laughed. When Tasha was a baby, she went, ah. And my mom said, ah. She was so in sync. That's something when I'm working with young parents and who have babies that I use as an example of what to do to be in sync with your baby and to connect, because it's how empathy is created. So she was the best, and she drove me nuts, and I love her with all my heart, and I am so glad you're all in her life. And I'm not sure Danny Wilson's going to make it, but we're hoping he can call in.
He's got 10 more minutes.
Yeah, he's got 10 more minutes. So Danny was her boss, I mentioned, and she adored him, but he lives in like the Poconos or something now. And so his reception is terrible. And he thought he was going to be able to call in, but we're not seeing that. Franny, if you're able to text him or something, if you're able to reach him, that would be great, because we are nearing the end here.
Well, I can say something else.
It's yours, Ruth. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, everybody has talked here about all Phyllis's accomplishments, of which I can heartily agree there could never be enough. However, I traveled with Phyllis twice, so I would just like to broaden the picture a little bit. First of all, we went through all these cities. We traveled twice. Once we went to Prague and to wherever the other one was, I can't remember. And then we also took a cruise and we went through cities. We went to Malta and Morocco and Greece and what have you. So the first one was further back than the second. I already began to realize when we went through Czechoslovakia that I had a slight problem, which was that your mother didn't know north, south, east, or west in any way, shape, or form. So that began a series of events that went through all our travels, where she would hang on to my elbow and I would look up at street signs that were totally incomprehensible, but I figured out where to go because somehow I was born with an internal compass. I can't write, but I have an internal, well, maybe I can write now. Anyway, so we wandered through pillar and post. We had the most extraordinary experiences, including going to a spa where everybody got naked. That was not bad. The spa and the nakedness in the pool wasn't bad. It was the people when we got on massage tables that were made out of cement where they came over and whipped us with something and then poured a pail of cold water over our heads, we decided this was not an experience that we were going to do a second time. So we let that go. I mean, I could go on and on. I will briefly say that on the cruise to all those spots, Mom was, first of all, her foot swelled on the ship. So she always limped to everywhere we went. That was the entire cruise experience. Before that, she managed to lose her passport in Barcelona. So we spent a day going to the consulate. Then when we finally got to these various spots, it would be a tour and there would be a group. And there'd be a guy in the front talking and the rest of us would come along. However, your mother was slowing down. She couldn't quite do it. So what happened for me is that the group was up there in front of me. Your mother was behind me. And I managed to stay centered so that I never lost sight of the group or lost sight of your mother, because otherwise I would have lost her somewhere and never found her again. So that's just a brief moments of Phyllis in a somewhat different context. My adorable, bright, beautiful, friendly, motherly, everything friend. And it never mattered. We laughed and danced our way through all those places too. Oh, and I could mention that we were on a flight between the cities, Budapest and Prague, and they made us put our heads in our lap because they said that we're having mechanical difficulties. We still had wine in our hands. I turned to your mother and I said, we are not crashing in some frigging foreign country. Drink up, my dear. So we kept drinking and we didn't put our heads down, and there was nothing wrong with the plane. These were communists and they didn't want to tell us why they had to make an extra stop. So fortunately, so I want you to know that every time I still travel, I privately drink a glass to my friend, and she is with me now wherever I go. And all the memories of all those times will be with me too. So I'm grateful that I had them. Cut.
Hey, honey, I'll tell a story, okay? So two stories. One was that we went to New York once on business for me, and didn't tell Phyllis that we were coming, so that we could knock on her apartment door with Julie hiding around the corner. And then Phyllis answered, and she said, "Oh, I said I was the pest inspector, right? Knocking on the door. Who is it? Pest inspector. Got to check it out." So then she opens it up. She sees me, and she says, "Are you John?" Who's like Julie's handyman back at home in San Francisco. And I said, "No." And she says, "Are you Glenn?" "Yes." And then Julie pops out. So then that was a good shrieky surprise. And then the others, well, we actually pulled the same thing on her sister. When we went to Nashville and brought Tasha, she didn't know Tasha was going to, she didn't know we were going to. So, so I guess it's a theme. And the other thing is that another time we were visiting in New York, we asked her for advice about what shows to go see. And she says, well, there's this really good one. It's off Broadway. But I think I think the playwright's very good. And I think the show is very good. So she sent us to go see this. So the show called this guy, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I think he did something else after that. But that was pretty cool. So we got to meet Lin and got his autograph and the whole cast. And thanks, Phyllis, for the tip. All right, that's all for me.
We need to give Steve Sultan a little credit on that show too, because he told us about it too, and he also told us where to eat dinner, which was excellent. Yeah.
Julie?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You want to talk?
Yeah,
now?
I'll add a little bit. I don't like to speak too much either. But anyhow, I just want to say that when Glenn and Julie were dating, I was in New York and I made a point to contact Phyllis, and that's the first time I met her. And then after that, of course, there's the wedding and all that. And the only times I've seen her after that, after the wedding, was when she'd come up to visit Julie and Glenn. And then, of course, when Tasha came along. And then we would get together for dinner and whatever. And one Thanksgiving about 2 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe in Oxnard, we had Thanksgiving with her. And she's always been really delight and cheerful and everything else. And she's always giving me little gifts, like a photo album. And then these earrings I have were from her. And it's one of my favorites. So the good thing about it is that every time I put them on, I think about her. And I wish we had gotten together more often, but that's how it is, you know, when one's in LA, when I'm up here in Palo Alto. So it's really good to hear about what her life was like when she was young, because we never talked about that too much, although I knew she had a pretty vivid, pretty exciting life. And it proved it today with you people talking. That's it.
That's great, Nan. Thanks so much. It's really good that people from different parts of her life are talking. There are a few of you whose names I want to call out, but I'm afraid to put pressure on you. So if you're an old friend, now's your time. But you don't have to. I know a couple of my friends have come who knew my mom, and I really appreciate that you guys are here. Lola, Roxana, John Brolick, I think is somewhere. And you guys only knew my mom a little, you know, but she loved you guys, and that's why we asked you to be here. There are other friends of my brother's too. I see Billy Dietrich's here, which is great because she adored him. And any Satas. She loved all the Satas. I'm not sure how many Satas are here, but she loved all of you. And I don't know if we should, this is Danny's time right now. So we're gonna wait a few minutes to see if Danny Wilson is actually able to connect. So if anybody else has anything to say, Dominica, I don't know exactly how to pronounce your name, but I wanted to say, Mom told me about you. And she was so fond of you. From what I understand, you were her physical therapist, and then you became friends. And when you went away to school, far away somewhere in another country, she stayed in touch with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Phyllis was, can you hear me? I don't use Zoom often, okay. Phyllis was my patient, I think in 2012, and very quickly from a patient, she became a close friend. And I did not see the age difference at all. We did our Chardonnay happy hours every week. I ditched my own friends to hang out with Phyllis. You know, we went to the movies. We went to Cheesecake Factory many times.
Oh, her favorite.
Yeah, I've never been there. So she's like, we have to go to Cheesecake Factory. She was just like one of the funniest, you know, sorry, I'm not family. So one of the funniest, coolest people I knew. And it was a shock. We texted every other week. We talked on the phone a couple of times a month. Just an incredible soul. I mean, one of the funniest people. And I have all our texts that go back, you know, 12 years, and then I'll never delete them. And so I read through them, and I think every single one is probably like, you know, 2-3 paragraphs long by her, and it's always real and raw and funny. And loved your mom. You know, I met Jed once or twice when I was at her place just hanging out. But I heard about the family, the granddaughter she was so proud of, and she would text me like, can you believe Natasha dyed her hair blue? Like but just the tips, and she would always keep me in touch about all you guys. So it's an honor to have, you know, met all her best friends, and I'm just very honored to have, you know, had a piece in her life. She was amazing. That's it.
Thanks so much. You know, I mean, I think one thing we're learning and seeing today, for anybody who it wasn't clear to, is that my mom made impressions on people of all different ages. She made friends with people of all different ages, and she mothered people. And that was joy to her. She loved every minute of doing that. Oh,
Hey.
is Danny calling in? Okay, let's see if we can get Danny Wilson talking. Make sure it's Danny.
I have to leave.
All right.
Yeah, that looks like, I think that's Danny Wilson because it's just Danny Wilson, you're on.
Okay. Well, Julie and Jed, this is a solemn occasion. However, knowing Phyllis as I knew her and loved her, and she was very much part of a lot of my adult life and my work. And so I just want to give you a few remembrances that I have when I met Phyllis. It was back in the early 1960s, actually 61 or 62. And I met her when she was brought in to a project that we had sold. That was when I was working for another company, and we had sold to ABC called Discovery. It was a children's show that ultimately, over the 9-year period, traveled around the world. And Phyllis was brought in as a writer's assistant and researcher. And it was just a chaotic existence because we were on 5 days a week live for the first 13 weeks. And I can't even ever recalling us finishing a dress rehearsal. And Phyllis was very much a part of it because she, even though she was consigned to the writers, she usually came down to the studio for the live telecast. And she was with us. She was with me really from that day on throughout the entire 13-week period. And then we were, because we had won an Emmy, we were renewed for another 13 weeks. And that, after that, we stayed in touch. She went on to do some other work. And then in 1969, when I started my own company, we were basically doing documentaries. And then we got into the drama field. And then I got a call from Phyllis. And I hadn't heard from her in some years, but she wanted to come back to work in the worst way. And I said, you know where we are, just come on in and we'll find something for you to do. Well, that was probably one of the primary reasons that our company became successful, because Phyllis found a way to get into the program development field. And she had just an uncanny knack for finding books or scripts that we utilized as hour-length specials in the ABC After School Special series. And she was so much a part of the creative process of those programs that it really was remarkable. Writers adored her. When we did a project with a well-known writer, they would always listen to her and absorb whatever she had, notes she had to make, and it not only had creative talent, but she had a manner in which she was non-threatening. And it's one of the reasons I think we were able to do the work that we did that ultimately gave us such joy and success. And I remember the day she brought a book into the office by a man named John Williams, who I didn't know of. And he had written a book called Junior Bachelor Society. And it was a phenomenal piece of writing. And through Phyllis's dogged kind of work, and we were able to option the book, and ultimately it was the first primetime miniseries, turned into the first primetime miniseries that we did for network television. And all her work was varied. She would travel when necessary. She and I went to Germany on a trip that a German production company wanted us to make, that ultimately turned out to be a Peabody Award-winning primetime series on the Hitler Youth Movement, and the success of that series was due in a large part to the relationship that she had with Robert Mueller, the screenwriter, who really worked with Phyllis and helped shape, and Phyllis helped shape the drama in a way that it too was very successful. And then, Phyllis was kind of mercurial person. And when we had a fallow period, and she wanted to try something else. So she went to work for another producing company, and we stayed in very close touch. And ultimately, when my wife and I took her to dinner just a few days before she was leaving to move to California. And we, of course, begged her not to go. But she had made up her mind that that's where she wanted to be. And she was a person that I just revered. And everybody who worked with her felt the same way. She was funny. She was engaged. She always had a story to tell. I remember she had a group of us laughing so hard, we literally were unable to speak. She was telling us the story when one of her first jobs was working for a talent agency, and the main agent was a man by the name of Bullets Durgam, and she went through a routine of how she answered the phone, and in an office that was so small that it went out onto a fire escape, and whenever the agent had meetings, Phyllis had to go out in the fire escape and answer the calls. But yet she was a shining light in every life she touched, and she is missed sorely. And that's about how I felt about Phyllis. She was a thorough professional. She was creative. She was funny, and she loved life, and she loved people. And in these days,
Danny?
that's a rarity. Yes.
Danny, I thank you so much. I know it was hard for you to even dial in and for you to pull away from your engagement tonight. So I really appreciate that. I think a lot of people have been on here for a couple of hours. So we just want to let people know it's okay. If you want to go now, if you have things to do. Thank you so much for being here. We
Especially
love
on
you.
Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend, we knew it was a tough one, but it was the only one could work for a lot of schedules. So thanks for making it. Hey.
Oh, listen, I'm delighted to be able to do so.
Julie and Jed, thank you so much for putting this together. This was such an awesome evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll bet it is. Lots of love to all.
We'll email you, Danny, the whole thing, so you'll be able to see it. I think you'll enjoy the slideshow that Glenn made.
Oh, terrific. Sure, you bet.
And
Bye.
Mindy, I just saw your note. Thank you for being here too. We really appreciate you being here. Nice.
That's gross.
And for those people that she loved that are not here, we will send them everything. And Uncle Bruce, I know you probably had something going on, and I really appreciate that you came when you could. And I'll email you everything so that you have it. You can see the slideshow. You're in it. All right. Love you. Love everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye, everybody. Love you. Thank you. Thank you, Julie and Glenn, really for putting this together. Thank you.